That in terms of some of the high-level parts of FoFA, it hasn't been at all an alarming transition, or indeed, in some cases, even a particularly relevant transition. You know, wherever there's an ongoing client fee agreement, we've had written agreements in place for years. So if you take opt-in as an example, the core bits of opt-in have no real concern for us, but I do have a couple of interesting administrative questions that I'm looking forward to some clarity around, because we will have to design some processes that have a very low tolerance for failure. You know, there's a few steps in the final stages. If a client were to not respond, the few clients that would silently, if you like, default out, that you need to get right and you need not to miss. So we're looking forward to some understanding in more detail some of that. And in the fee disclosure, clearly our sector and our firms have always been committed to fee disclosure. I mean, FSI brought in a very prescriptive regime. In fact, if you're a client getting a statement of advice and all the product disclosure statements attached to it, you're probably getting 50, 60 pages of fee disclosure between all of the different providers. So much fee disclosure that it may actually be too intimidating and be opaque. But this is more about the form of the disclosure changing, and I'm concerned that there may be data that we should have been capturing, say, back to the 1st of July, or maybe even back further, that we don't have clarity about that now. We might have to go back and rebuild some of that information along the way. So again, looking forward to some clarity around that, and absolutely recognize that ASIC are like us. You know, they've had a challenging timeline to work to get all this done. Again, we would love to have news to announce about 1 or 2 additional practices later in the year, but again, it's more about finding that fit, and so a few practices a year, and we'd be very happy with good quality, sustainable growth in that side. But we want to continue to work on a number of projects we've got to help our practices grow their businesses, to help Premium grow. One of those is, of course, our stake in the Emerald Club. If you look into that sector, what's really interesting is you find a bunch of advisors that are very like-minded with Premium in terms of their desire for operating outside of any kind of institutional imperative, and with distinct business models, and some of them are some of the really finest advisors I know, pioneers in the industry. People have pioneered SMAs for 20 years because they needed to develop those things in order to satisfy their clients. And that's the sort of caliber of advisor, the sort of boutique client proposition that we find really attractive, and why there's in fact a good business philosophy fit. And we think watching something like the Emerald Wrap underneath the Emerald Club and the other services that we brought out will be a really interesting space to be. Add to that, of course, that if you go back over the numbers, the socially responsible sector, or the ethical sector, whatever you want to call it, for I think about 20 years that the data is being tracked, has been one of the fastest growing sectors within the funds management and advice industry, and it's always good to be participating in one of the in a strongly growing sector.